Okay, I think we'll get started. Welcome everybody. Thank you for coming to the Research Culture and Practice Forum session on researcher career paths, applying research expertise beyond academia. My name is Rachel Nicholas. I'm the Membership and Engagement Manager at Vitae, and I'm going to be chairing this session. So just a couple of housekeeping notes before we begin. Please use the Q&A function throughout to ask your questions to our speakers. Please make sure to use this function to ask questions rather than the chat, as they won't be seen. Instead, you can use the chat to add your own views, insights and suggestions about the topics that we're discussing. The webinar is being recorded and it will be uploaded to the UUK events YouTube page. You will receive an email from UUK once it is available to view. Great, so let's get started. So I think this panel follows on really nicely from the end of the Q&A discussion, which was starting in the previous session, which was starting to explore these the topic of careers outside of academia. So in this panel, we're turning our focus to the opportunities that are available for researchers to apply their knowledge, skills and expertise beyond higher education and academia. So this links in with many of the issues and concordats that have been discussed so far. So in particular, equipping and supporting researchers to be adaptable in pursuing a wide range of careers is central to the professional and career development principle of the Research Development Concordat. Vitae's latest What Do Researchers Do research into the destinations of doctoral researchers found that just under half of doctoral graduates were employed in higher education, and only 10% were in research roles outside of higher education, with major variance in occupation by discipline. As a previous doctoral researcher and postdoc in the arts and humanities, I know from personal experience how difficult it is navigating opportunities outside of academia. And so I'm very pleased to be joined by three brilliant speakers today to hear about some of the initiatives and work being done to tackle this issue. So we'll be hearing from Danny Croucher, Policy Lead for Skills and Talent at the National Centre for Universities and Business, Joanna Thornborough, Senior Policy Advisor for Higher Education and Skills at the British Academy, and Lucy Williams, Senior Project Manager at Prosper, which we've heard mention of, so really looking forward to hearing about that. The Q&A session is going to follow those presentations, so please do send in your questions via the Q&A function throughout, and I'll now hand over to Danny.
Thank you so much, Rachel. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm just going to share my slides, and please let me know when you can see those. Fantastic. I think we're presenting. Yeah, perfect. Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's so great to be here to talk about our Researcher Career Mobility Taskforce, which is a bit of a wordy one, but what we're really looking at here is exactly what Rachel just mentioned. Often careers are within silos, within one pillar of the innovation kind of ecosystem, or one pillar, when really we should have these opportunities as researchers and institutions to be able to work a lot more adaptably across systems. So fantastic to be here. I'm Danny Croucher and I lead all things skills and talent policy at NCUB. For those who don't know NCUB, we're the National Centre for Universities and Business, and we work to make the UK the best place for university business collaboration, and that includes people moving between the system. So I think what we're really talking about here is skills, moving skills between systems, between organisations and institutions, to be able to make sure we have the right people with the right know-how to do the things that we need as a nation. But we know also that we're having a real skills puzzle and conundrum at the moment. The landscape's changed dramatically, and we have only 3.7% unemployment in the UK. So we don't have many people to play with, and there's more than 1 million vacancies across the sector as well, across the workforce as a whole. And this is particularly acute in innovation sectors. So I know a recent study by the Federation of Small Businesses said 80% of small businesses have struggled to hire in the last 12 months, which I think is a really shocking stat. And then we also have some sectors which are particularly hit by this. So in manufacturing, there were 100,000 vacancies last year. And in the digital sector, I think new data shows that 90% of our jobs across the whole workforce, not just within innovation, will need digital skills basically now and into the future. But the lack of skills that we have to fill those roles mean that we miss 63 billion in GDP each year. So we're looking at a real issue with the kind of supply-demand mismatch that we're facing. So this is a real problem, and it's a real problem not just because it challenged us meeting our science superpower strapline, but also because of what this really means. So without having the right people, we'll struggle to continue the kind of world leading science within our world leading universities, but also that which takes place in business and industry threatens spin outs, it threatens scale ups, and also the things we need kind of supported by our science superpower nation, which is the greening agenda, net zero, and keeping the country safe from kind of defence needs. So it is a real important problem, and at the moment there's been quite a few different strategies that have come out that said we need to do more with less. So within the R&D people and culture strategy, across the R&D roadmap, and in the UK innovation strategy, all released within the last couple of years, there's been talks saying how do we apply the skills that we have within different kind of sectors into others, and how is that role of collaboration, moving skills around the system going to fill that gap? We know there's limited skill supply, but also limited migration now post-Brexit, aging workforce, etc. So how can we make more of the people that we have, which looks to me a little bit like we're saying this, but actually there is a real important role of cross-sector researcher movement to solve this problem. So it's really important that kind of cross-sector career pathways, and we will all benefit from an agile and mobile workforce. So it will improve access to skills for kind of all businesses and universities. It also helps build skills within the workforce as kind of different knowledges and ideas exchange. It helps develop networks, which help this kind of the organization losing someone or kind of putting someone out, and those who then host someone that's come to join them. And this creates and builds knowledge within both organizations and for the researcher. And it also just something quite fantastic around linking organizations together, so improving access to infrastructure and funding, such as bringing in skills to be able to access funding, particularly for universities, to be able to write those research grants or access business pots of funding, and likewise for universities, hiring someone that's for businesses rather, hiring someone that's come from university means they're likely to have kept relationship with that university that might still have the infrastructure that you need. And lastly, supports a lot of these spin-ups and scale-ups, which really need business knowledge and kind of industry thinking to be able to make those a success. So what are we doing to try and improve this? So we know it's a problem. We know the scale of the skill challenge. So we've been endorsed by Research England to bring together some of the leaders of universities and businesses across the UK to look at this, and we're forming kind of a 360-degree view of researcher careers to understand just what the barriers are and how we can make more of this happen. So we're joined by the likes of VCs and PVCs and directors and chair people across institutions on the screen, and looking to make real impact and disrupt career pathways. So what are we going to do? So I won't ask you all to read this, but I can kind of talk to it quite quickly. So effectively, we know that career mobility is something that's good, but currently it's pretty much just seen as good and not fully defined. So principally, we're looking at exactly what researcher careers look like and exactly how we get the most from them, and kind of beyond why it's just good and exactly what we need to do to make a change. So for the first time, we're going to be building a picture of how much mobility is done throughout researchers' careers, and then looking at how that differs between sectors, and you see wildly different pictures by different disciplines, and also different regions across the UK as opportunities and infrastructures and kind of different businesses HQ in different places. We're then going to be looking at all of the different levers and mechanisms of support. There's lots of fellowships and schemes that support mobility, and exploring those and those that are done overseas to see exactly how we can level them up, scale them up to be able to support and embed mobility across careers, and then make recommendations with the sector for the sector to improve skills access and transference through the system. So I'm going to quickly run you through each of these, the strands that we have to be able to do this. So the data is always tricky within this. I think it is across innovation. And so we're pairing 3 data sources, the ORCID, the kind of academic LinkedIn, with the NCB's own business motivation survey, which is done with Cambridge University, and the ex-Bayes, now DSIT RMO workforce survey, which is a fantastic resource, if you don't know it, that shows kind of, the demographics of people working within the innovation sector. So that should give us a picture of what researcher careers look like and where people go. We then partnered with a specialist qualitative agency called Thinks to interview 30 respondents, so 10 universities, 10 businesses, 10 researchers across the UK and across different disciplines, to understand exactly the barriers to working across sectors, why people actually look to employ people from another sector, people's experiences within it, and we'll get hugely different pictures based on different demographics within the sector, again, where people are based in the UK, and how embedded this is within strategy. So it's really, really interesting. And then finally, working with Technopolis, who are another specialist agency consultancy who are looking for us at all of the different schemes that exist, and particularly overseas, to see exactly what we can learn from what's done elsewhere. So the interesting bit, what have we learned so far? So one of the key things that I think we want to do is create a typology of how we can engage, because that is really key here, how we get more people to be active across sectors. So there's lots of different ways. It isn't just the binary, I'm leaving to go to another sector, but actually in reality, we also have part-time fixed-term placements, which really work to de-risk mobility, giving people the security that they can go back to the sector without harming their career prospects. Also dual contracts, working a couple of days somewhere or perhaps a week somewhere else. Just partnering, collaborating on a project as part of an organizational strategy to deliver something, and then getting the right skills in at times of spin-outs, etc. Often these are done in collaboration. Co-locating, which is a fascinating new and growing model, whereby people work in the same building and that knowledge is naturally exchanged and people come together quite naturally. And then also the really popular honorary positions, which we often see when people leave universities. So all of these are really valuable and valued. So we have found already that when these take place, there's huge value for both organisations across sectors. So we've seen links to better business outcomes, and also more access to research skills across the piece, but we also see the value for the actual researcher, which is really, really important in growing and nurturing our workforce. So really it's a win-win-win for all three of our kind of sample groups. However, and there is always a however, what we have seen is that often mobility is done subconsciously. So we've seen that there's a risk around both universities and businesses not necessarily having a strategy whereby they seek to employ people from another sector. And there's quite often barriers to doing this within kind of application criteria and strategy. That means it's difficult to access these people and for them to be successful within application. We also know that there's different challenges and barriers at different career stages, and the different push-pull factors which will limit how people move across the system across their career. So there needs to be some sort of embedding this within strategy so we can make sure we gain the benefits that come with when someone joins from somewhere else, and that we're able to then use the right lever for the person at that current kind of career stage. And then the final one in bold, to really emphasize, is that often when mobility does happen, it's because of personal relationships, and that's kind of part of the lack of the systemization of this, and that of course has a huge number of EDI issues around people who get opportunities or people who know people because of their networking experiences, and so there's a real role here to support the systemization of that, to be able to support people who don't have that benefit or privilege. And we know that support really matters. So looking at a lot of the schemes that I mentioned was the third strand of work there. We've seen that actually they really help empower the workforce, because they can de-risk mobility. It's not a kind of, you need to leave there and then I won't be able to come back and then I worry about my next step or the step after that. It's something that actually is all gain, and you just get a lot more experiences and networking opportunities. But often these schemes need they need longevity and funding to build repute. And there's definitely a role in building that within the schemes that we have to make them really attractive for all of the parties across the system. So there's a lot in there, and I think the main message that we'll leave you with here is that what we're really exploring is embedding skills within knowledge exchange strategy to make a difference here, and it's about making it by design as opposed to something that happens or that there's barriers to. But I hope I've left you with a bit of a taster, because there's a huge amount of data and insights for us to share with you, and we are pre-launch. So we are writing all of this up, and we'll be publishing all 3 of the evidence strands as individual evidence reports, as well as one policy report that was kind of built and delivered by the sector for the sector on September the 19th in London in person, and we'd be absolutely delighted to have as many of you there as possible, and we'll be publishing kind of information about that as soon as. So yes, fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. Any questions, please pop them in the chat or email myself directly, and I'm delighted now to hand back to Rachel to introduce the next speaker.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Danny. That was a really fantastic overview of how complex this topic is and all the different issues that are involved in it, and which sets us up fantastically for the other speakers as well there. Great. I will hand straight on to Joanna.
Thanks very much. I'm just going to share my screen as well, hopefully. Let me know if you can see that all okay. Yep, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so thank you very much for having me here today. Yes, so my name's Joanna Thornborough, and I'm a Senior Policy Advisor for Higher Education and Skills at the British Academy. For those of you who are not so familiar with us, the British Academy is, as it says here, the UK's National Academy for the Humanities and Social Sciences. So therefore, I'd like to think about the issue that we're discussing this afternoon from the point of view of these disciplines, the SHAPE disciplines, as we call them, standing for Social Sciences, Humanities and the Arts for People and the Economy. So amongst our various roles at the Academy, we also engage in quite a lot of research ourselves through our policy function, and we count the number of doctoral graduates amongst our staff as well. So of course, many of the challenges that we're talking about today and we've been hearing about over the course of this conference, when it comes to thinking about a range of careers, are of course common across the breadth of researchers and disciplines as well. And I think something which is very much still a challenge, but potentially also one of the benefits for SHAPE researchers in particular and those supporting them, is that the knowledge and expertise developed through and derived from these disciplines doesn't always push researchers in a specific direction when it comes to thinking about careers beyond academia. So obviously, as Danny has said as well, part of the challenge comes from thinking about knowing where to start, where to get advice, and build networks and help explore a range of career pathways. So the Concordats have a nicely inclusive definition of researcher, but I think there are also some interesting questions around that researcher identity more specifically. So how researchers think of and are encouraged to think of themselves in terms of being a researcher, and whether that identity is, can, or indeed should be something that's transferable to careers beyond academia as well, or whether there's something specific about that academic identity. Really, what I want to highlight, however, are the range of possible pathways and opportunities for applying this knowledge and expertise. If I can move my slides on, there we go. So I'd like to focus on some of the Academy's skills-focused work and other initiatives, but also a little bit from the voices of SHAPE researchers themselves and what they have to say about their own research career paths. So if we think about key skills for the 21st century workforce and things like R&D targets, etc., then it's apparent that these map very well onto the skills and ways of working which SHAPE study and SHAPE researchers develop. And importantly as well, we've seen through our work that those skills are also ones that are identified by SHAPE graduates and researchers themselves. And of the top 5 industries with the highest R&D spend in 2020, for example, 4 of them employed more, so quote, non-science, as it's termed there, rather than science graduates. So the skills we're talking about here include things like initiative and entrepreneurialism, and over half of the UK's leading startups were founded by SHAPE graduates. Accessing and analysing information, critical thinking and problem solving, creativity, collaboration and leadership, and of course, effective oral and written communication. An extensive review done by the National Foundation for Educational Research also suggests that the skills most resilient to changes in the future of work are also those which SHAPE researchers possess in spades. And this ties in quite well with research which we published in our report Qualified for the Future that you can see on screen here, showing that those from SHAPE disciplines demonstrate flexibility and choice in career paths and are more likely to be able to change sectors voluntarily and roles voluntarily without wage penalty. And they're also more resilient to economic shocks in the long term as well, which is not a bad thing to be at the moment. I don't want to suggest from this that career paths should all be about sort of numbers or lists of skills, far from it. But I do just want to emphasize through this that there is a demand and the need for the skills, knowledge and expertise of SHAPE researchers across a range of sectors, and that they're vital for meeting some of our greatest challenges, again, some of which Danny mentioned. I think it's also really helpful to hear a little bit from the researchers themselves and the mixtures of skills and opportunities that they've identified and cited. I appreciate this is quite a crowded slide, but it's really just to give you an idea of the range of career pathways that the case studies that we've brought together represent. So a graduate with a PhD in geography, for example, now works on climate change and adaptation and is finding that his GIS skills and other domain expertise is being used on a daily basis. Something like that might seem like a fairly sort of standard pathway for that sort of subject area. But he did also emphasize that when applying for roles and engaging with clients, he felt that his PhD did help get his CV to the top of the pile, and that it was also valuable as a manifestation of his expertise in the relevant subject area as well. Another case study, this time from our Skills at Work report, did her doctorate on Caribbean colonial history. And this knowledge and expertise has been vital in what she's gone on to do in local government, particularly when coordinating with NHS England to address vaccine hesitancy in London through community engagement. So considering groups, messages and messengers, and the most appropriate strategies to tackle health myths and to build trust in those communities. And she still engages with academia and has delivered lectures on Caribbean history to the British Army, amongst others. Another hot topic at the moment is AI, and another interviewee for us highlighted the fact that obviously technology is not something that's neutral. It's designed by humans for human use, at least at the moment. And the suggestion that where technology has no grounding in SHAPE disciplines as well, that this could be potentially devastating. And the product lead in Android and machine learning at Google put it, just because it's possible to build something, should we? It's an important question to ask, and this sort of thing is the wheelhouse of SHAPE. A further case study participant with a PhD in English became the only academic at the Globe when she joined there as a lecturer in the education department, a position which came with an academic affiliation, which has since become permanent. But she emphasized it was not just her doctorate and her research that was valuable, but also her teaching experience. And that's something that I think we don't hear enough about when we're talking about researchers and skills and career paths as well. So a lot of researchers will also be teaching. Some may be primarily on teaching contracts, particularly if they're from certain groups. But obviously teaching is a skill. And if it's done well, it's about communicating the complex in a clear way and fostering engagement and imagination. And our English researcher emphasised the importance of cultivating this dual voice for researchers. So the ability both to write for your academic peers, but also being able to communicate without using too much academic jargon. Obviously, there are challenges for researchers wanting to pursue career paths beyond academia, and I could talk a lot more about that. But thankfully, we've also been hearing an awful lot about a lot of the excellent initiatives which are supporting this exploration and mobility. And I think we're going to hear a bit more from Lucy in a minute. Finally, I would like to briefly mention some British Academy initiatives as well. First of all, I'd like to highlight our Early Career Researcher Network. Hopefully this is something some of you may already have heard about. First piloted in 2021 in partnership with the Wolfson Foundation. The network now has hubs in the Midlands, the southwest of England, and also in Scotland, currently encompassing around 47 institutions across those regions. It's intended to be an inclusive research-led membership body, eligible to all UK-based early career researchers, and we take a broad interpretation of early career researcher, working in the humanities and social sciences, but regardless of funding source, contract type, or background. It prides itself on being run by ECRs for ECRs, and members are very much at the heart of driving the activity of the network. And there's been a lot of demand for workshops looking at careers beyond academia, and we've been very fortunate that the network's been able to partner with VTI for that. So thank you very much to VTI. Our Talent and Development Awards aim to promote the building of skills and capacities for both current and future generations of UK-based researchers, including in core areas such as quantitative skills, interdisciplinarity, data science, digital humanities, and languages as well. And this is something open to applicants who are established researchers in the humanities and social sciences with a current long-term appointment at a UK higher education institution or an independent research organisation. So it's not purely academic focused. And our innovation fellowships are designed to enable researchers in the humanities and social sciences to partner with organisations and businesses in the creative, cultural, public, private and policy spheres. And the support that researchers receive through this is designed to help them develop deeper links beyond academia, but also hopefully to further widen understanding across sectors of the value of SHAPE expertise and SHAPE researchers. Finally, if I may, I'd just like to make a shameless plug for our British Academy Summer Showcase, which is happening at the end of this week. And in particularly the Early Career Researcher Late happening on Friday evening. This has been designed with the Early Career Researcher Network, but it's open to researchers more broadly. And it will include panels and sessions on topics such as careers beyond academia and in academia as well, and engaging research in the policy landscape, amongst others. As I said, it's open to all early career researchers, broadly defined. You don't have to be a member of the network. So if you do happen to be on London on Friday, do please pop down to Carlton House Terrace and join us for that. And absolutely final thing I want to flag is that the Academy is also beginning a big new project looking at research careers for SHAPE researchers as well. It's in very early scoping stages at the moment, but hopefully contributing more evidence on that. So I will leave it there and thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Joanna. All of those events are really exciting, as well as that new project. And it's great to hear what the BA are doing in this area and to hear about SHAPE as well. I will pass straight on to Lucy.
Thanks very much. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. Let me just start sharing. Is that working okay for everyone? Brilliant. I've got a two-screen system as well, so I'll if I'm looking to the side. So hello, I'm Lucy Williams, Prosper Senior Project Manager, and I'm absolutely, as I say, delighted to be here to share what we've developed through Prosper with you. So first of all, a little bit of background. So Prosper is a £3.6 million project funded by Research England, led by the University of Liverpool in partnership with University of Manchester and Lancaster University. And as it says on the screen there, our ambition was to create a new approach to postdoc career development, very relevant to this session, one that prepared postdocs for career success across multiple career pathways, really recognising from some of the examples we've just been hearing about, the real what a highly skilled group of researchers they are, and they have with real potential to contribute enormously across a wide range of sectors. So we're in the final stages of the project, and all that we've learned and developed is now being incorporated into our Prosper approach and our portal, which will be launched and rolled out to the sector later this summer. But we just wanted to say a little bit about the outset of the project, and we were really conscious at the outset that co-creation was going to be absolutely key to the success. If we really were to deliver something that would meet our ambitions and be of value to postdocs and the sector. So that's why we set ourselves these 3 guiding principles that you can see here on the screen. So first of all, co-creation with employers, absolutely essential. Prosper really provided us with a genuinely unique opportunity to speak to employers, to find out what they needed from their workforce and to apply that in what we developed. Working with principal investigators is absolutely key. We recognise that, they're the managers of postdocs, and that more than anyone else in the system, they really have the power to set the tone and the permission structures for their researchers' development. And then finally, democratising access. We really wanted to create a model and a set of resources for career enhancement that any postdoc, regardless of personal circumstances, gender, ethnicity, caring responsibilities, discipline, that any could easily access and find something of relevance for their own particular career development journey. So how did we do in terms of our co-creation? So first of all, we've engaged with over 100 employers, from multinationals to SMEs, government departments to charities and third sector organisations, and they've really helped us to develop our set of 12 career clusters, which represent the breadth of opportunities available to postdocs. And also we've had a wide range of inputs on the skills and mindsets they're looking for, which have helped us to shape the way we've developed Prosper. We've worked with over 120 principal investigators through our PI network across our 3 partner institutions, and that's included a mix of both best practice sharing sessions as well as specially commissioned sessions. And as a result of that, we've developed a sort of a rich range of resources to support our PIs, our managers of researchers, in the development of their postdocs. We've worked with, most importantly, probably over 120 postdocs. They've been involved in 2 one-year cohorts, the first one at Liverpool and the second one across Liverpool, Manchester and Lancaster. And we put a lot of effort into the recruitment of those cohorts. We really foregrounded considerations of equality and diversity so that we really had a truly representative group to co-create and develop Prosper with. And then finally, we've worked with over 20 HEIs from within the N8, from more broadly across the UK and internationally. So it was from the outset, because we're aiming to develop something that can be rolled out and used across the sector, we really need to involve the sector from the beginning. And we've really had some valuable input that's helped to shape what we've developed. So our resources and approaches can be used flexibly to meet local needs. So what have we achieved? So all of that co-creation has enabled us to develop an approach and set of resources to develop to support 3 key audiences: postdocs, managers of researchers, and to support HEIs to use and implement Prosper locally. I'm just going to focus, because of time, on the postdoc offering here. And on the screen here, you can see a sort of a representation of what we've developed and the resources to support this. So it's very much a holistic approach based around the sort of 3 key elements shown here of reflect, explore, and act. So reflect is all about encouraging postdocs to look inwards, to get a better sense of themselves, their values, their skills, before going on to explore, very much then feeding into what Danny and Joanne have been saying. It's all about then turning that gaze outwards, expanding their knowledge of the employment landscape and the options open to them. And then finally, act is about bringing together all they've learned about themselves, the external employment landscape, for practical, concrete use in terms of pursuing their career goals wherever they may be, both within and beyond academia. And underpinning all of that, we've developed a set of community building resources to sort of help normalise the postdoc experience. And also both of our cohorts have benefited enormously from career coaching. And in our final set of resources that we've developed both some self-guided career coaching resources, but also some career coaching resources that institutions could use if they were using Prosper and they wanted to supplement that with their own career coaching approaches. And I think, and this is again really relevant to the discussions we've had so far, we don't want any postdoc to view their career development as a sort of a linear process. In fact, some of the postdocs that were members of our cohorts had already worked outside of academia, had moved back into academia to undertake their postdoc. So we could always see that sort of movement that Danny was talking about. So we very much designed Prosper so that postdocs can dip in depending on their needs and circumstances. So just to say a little bit, finally, I've got a few slides just to talk a little bit about the impact of Prosper. So integral to Prosper and the sort of the purpose really of running our 2 pilot cohorts was to evaluate the impact of the interventions and the impact on their career directions, to really see what worked, what didn't, and that, you know, and we've published a full evaluation of our first pilot cohort, and I'll put a link to that in the chat in a minute so people can have a look at it. And we're currently in the process of doing an equivalent one for both our cohorts, which will be available soon. But we found that taken together as a whole, the cohorts had a hugely positive impact on their participants. And that impact could be seen both in a growth in confidence, which translated into behavioural change, which is starting to also translate into outcomes. Really underlining the holistic nature of Prosper. And these quotes on the screen here are very much just a small sample of some of that rich body of qualitative evidence that we've gathered. In terms of some quantitative evidence, I mentioned confidence, and one of the things that we did was we tracked change in confidence over the time that our cohorts members were with us from an entry and an exit survey, and you can see a comparison there between the red and the blue. This is very much hot off the press and will be part of our second evaluation report. But the results really show major increases in 18 measures of confidence relating to various aspects of personal career development, from confidence in communicating and reaching out to employers beyond academia, initiating their own career development and identifying their own career goals. And finally, and this is some results for our first cohort. Finally, this has translated into tangible outcomes and can be seen, you know, in the numbers here, using their newfound confidence, skills and career clarity to secure new roles, both within and beyond academia. It's still very early days on this front, particularly for members of our second cohort who just finished in February. And one of the things we're committed to doing is continuing to track, because we know that data is very difficult to get. So we are going to be continuing to track the career trajectories of all the postdocs that have been involved in our 2 cohorts in the years following their time with Prosper. But I think you can see there that, you know, almost half of the first cohort have secured new positions, both within and beyond academia, with over 30% sort of successfully moving beyond academia. And we've got some really nice case studies across the first and second cohort. And again, I'll put a link in the chat, really showing you the whole range of journeys that our different cohort members have been on. So I think taken as a whole, we feel the overall theme is that Prosper is affecting a transformation in mindset, giving postdocs the confidence and information they need to take control of their futures and to chart a more informed professional course and really explore all of the options that are open to them. So what's next? So as I said, all that we've learned, the team are working really hard in the final few weeks of our first phase of the funding to bring together everything onto the online portal, which we will be launching over the summer, and we will be really sort of promoting it quite widely in September as part of National Postdoc Appreciation Week. If you want to have an overview of the project or a preview of the portal, I've also included 2 really nice links to videos here. I can post those in the chat as well. Certainly this Prosper overview video just gives you a little a 5-minute snapshot of what's going to be available on the portal when it launches. And finally, of course, we're going to be continuing to operate Prosper both at Liverpool, but also to encourage rollout across the sector. That's really an important part. So any institutions here that are interested, I know we've spoken to quite a lot, interested in using Prosper, thinking about how they might implement it, then, you know, please drop us an email at that email address. So I will finish there, and thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Lucy. Just sounds like an absolutely excellent and much needed tool. So thank you for giving us an overview and a bit of background there. I feel like I've got lots of questions, but we should hear from the audience. Tom, were there any questions in the Q&A? Just pull out.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. So yeah, we've got a couple of open ones, and thank you to the panelists for answering some of them during the presentations as well. We have one for Joanna about a great report. Has there been any reports on or research on career pathways of SHAPE postdocs rather than just doctoral?
Yes, so a lot of the case studies I mentioned well, they were from a range of well, those that we gathered for the postgraduate careers guidance. Obviously, the case studies we had for that were from postdocs primarily, some of which had sort of moved to careers beyond academia at various sort of stages after completing their doctorates, and some of which obviously had sort of gone into their doctorates with different aspirations as well. So we'd always planned to sort of go into a different career. Some had sort of intended to stay in academia, but change their mind or change circumstances, etc. Looking at sort of postdocs more broadly, and I think mid-career researchers as well is something that has sort of come up as a bit of a gap. That's an area that I think we very much like to focus on in this new project that we're starting, which I mentioned as well. So we do have some postdoc case studies. The list that I had on one of my slides, they're all sort of postdocs who've, as I said, moved into careers at various different stages after graduating. But that sort of qualitative view is very much something we'll be focusing on quite a lot more in this new project we've got coming up. That's a bit of a sort of half answer, I'm afraid. But yes, the link to the skills work that I posted does take you through to those case studies as well.
Thank you, Joanna. I think we also have one for Lucy about the challenges. The challenge of demand for mentoring outstripping the supply, and would you see a similar constraint coaching within Prosper if it's rolled out more widely?
Well, I haven't gone into it here, but I think we in the institutional part of the portal, we've developed a whole range of resources and different ways in which an institution could use Prosper, from a more light touch way right through to kind of a more intensive way of running cohorts. So there's a whole range of ways in which it can be flexed. So what I would say, though, in terms of answering that question on coaching, we've first of all, we've kind of been conscious of that as being such a valuable part of it. That's why we've developed some self-guided coaching resources. So the idea is that the Prosper portal and resources in that postdoc section could actually be used by postdocs in a sort of a self-guided way. So there'll kind of be resources that they can do, those self-coaching resources there. But we've also, as I said, provided some resources for an institution if they wanted to kind of embed and use Prosper for some of their postdocs. I mean, yeah, obviously that there's always a resource issue associated with that. But I think because a lot of the when people get to finally look at the Prosper portal, there's such a sort of a fantastic suite of resources there that you can sort of scaffold and build your program around. If you are just supporting some extra coaching resources, actually, in terms of the value that you get, it's a relatively small amount of money. But yeah, that will be very much down to individual institutions.
Thanks, Lucy. So I think there is another question in the chat that might be for Lucy. I wasn't sure, Lucy, if you were typing an answer to that one.
I started typing it, yeah, and then I thought it's going to take me a while. So yeah, I'm happy to take that because we have been asked this before about whether we sort of had a control group for Prosper. I mean, right at the outset, when we were sort of setting up or doing the initial bid for the project, we had this sort of discussion about could we have a control group, but we kind of ruled that out a little bit from a sort of an ethics point of view, you know, because it's obviously going to be highly valuable. So but what I would say is so we, you know, but we can really see the value in terms of the postdocs that have come through it, in terms of their sort of narratives and the stories, if you have a look at the sort of case studies that they produce. So no, we haven't got a direct control group. And one of the things that we all know is very challenging, it'd be really useful to see if it comes out of some of the work that data analysis that Danny's been doing, is actually kind of getting hold of real data on where do postdocs kind of currently move on to, which we all know is currently not really available very easily. So we haven't really even got a very easy benchmark that we can kind of compare against.
Thanks, Lucy. We have a couple more minutes for Q&As. Rachel, I didn't know if you wanted to ask one of your questions.
Yeah, I'll ask my questions. I think probably to all of the panelists, and it was kind of bringing it back to research culture. I wondered if anyone had any thoughts about how this focus on careers outside of academia intersected with research culture and contributes to change in research culture. So what's its place within that movement?
I might jump in. I think thinking back to some of the qualitative interviews that we did, there's still huge stereotypes that exist around careers outside of academia, and we know that the proportion of people who stay in academia is so low. Even kind of for PhD students, I think something around 15%, if I'm quoting the right source. So we have to change that narrative. We have to say that it's not a failure, it's just part of the natural steps, and show that picture a lot earlier. Because I think that's one of the major barriers we have. So there's a huge job to do, and I think it's on all of us to rewrite that pathway and show it's not a pipeline, it's not a leaky pipeline, and it's not a failure to leave. And that's the culture issue. But that will be kind of something that's reflected across the task force and an action on everybody within the system to challenge and change it. And it's part of the amazing work that panelists mentioned, like Prosper showed the data there of the numbers who are going out of academia within that programme. So hopefully we're making some headway.
Can I just follow on from that? I just want to really agree with what Danny's just been saying. I think a lot of the time, obviously, we hear about a lot of the successes that people have had, the grants that they've been successful with, the applications, but you know, it sort of relates a little bit to the debate about whether you sort of publish negative results. It's important for people to hear, you know, for everything that sort of was successful, everybody has things that they applied to which perhaps they didn't get. And so I suppose there's something about that sort of normalizing the sort of the process a little bit as well. So if, you know, you don't get the first thing you apply for, you don't get the first job, it doesn't feel like you're a failure. It's a sort of a process that everyone has gone through. It doesn't necessarily mean that's a good thing, but I think just sort of being open and honest about those challenges and the fact that there's something that sort of everyone experiences is important. And just finally, just one final point, I think if we're thinking about the variety of careers in terms of research culture, if we're not thinking about those careers beyond academia, which a lot of researchers go into, then we're just sort of ignoring a large part of the wider research culture as well. And we're having a very narrow view of it in that respect. So I think thinking broadly in terms of research culture, and that it's not just academia, although that is obviously an important part of it, but yeah, broadening those horizons when we're talking about it, I think is really important as well.
Absolutely love that idea of the fact that research culture does exist outside of higher education and thinking about it broadly. That seems like a really great point to end on, I think, Tom. And it is 2 o'clock now, so perhaps we'll end there. But thank you so much to all 3 of you. It was a fantastic panel, and I think my brain is like this, so I hope that the audience is thinking lots and lots about this topic. So thank you so much. Thank you, everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you.